D-Day, 5 a.m. Allied warships pummeled German forces on Normandy.
But high above this bombardment, a daring stealth mission is underway. Glider aircraft are attempting to silently drop deep behind enemy lines to deliver troops and equipment and clear the way for the D-Day invasion.
These glider men risk their lives in flimsy, unarmed, engineless aircraft made of wood and canvas. Many believe this is a suicide mission. Once released from their tow planes, there is no turning back, no rescue, and almost no chance of escape.
We knew that gliders had no engines, and we went into combat. We were going to land without engines. There's no way to get out. We're going to be completely surrounded.
For these glider men, failure is not an option.
We took off and start circling higher and higher, waiting for a trail for miles and miles long were gliders, one right after the other. And then we start the last turn that's going straight for Normandy. Well, immediately you start seeing more activity, you see more airplanes in the air. Then you'd see to the left and the right ships that were moving in. But then as you got closer, for miles and miles and miles, looking to the left were ships of every kind in the world, and to the right, the same way. And you could hear the tremendous boom of the big warships, and you could see them hitting on the beaches. It was the most awesome fight in the world.
As the gliders cross into France, the real danger finally appears.
The flak started to come up, and the wings rocked and shuddered from the concussions. And as we headed in, the fire became more intense. We could hear the bullets, the small arms fire, ricocheting off the metal tubing of the glider.
Against machine guns and rifle fire, the plywood aircraft offer almost no protection.
One thing about gliders, at the altitude that we had to go in and set a pattern from, they could take whatever weapon they had, a 45 automatic, and you could just about hit a glider. And so we were getting fire from all sections, and that's when you separate the men from the boys. You don't dare fail to pull your chain for your release of tow off of the rope. And so the pilots were constantly looking and gauging about where we was going to get the green light and seeing what kind of fields they were. Every once in a while you'd see a good field, but when you did, you'd find 10 gliders already taking it. So you got to fight for position when you got down.
Over the landing zone, other gliders were flying every which way, and there was danger of mid-air collision. One glider was coming right at us, and luckily I spotted it, and we dove, and they whooshed by about 4 feet above us.
So where I landed, I had set a very good 270-degree pattern, but I looked off to my right, and there were 3 gliders coming right into me, and they were getting it for themselves. And you know, you're not going to purposely hit one of your buddies, but you can fill the air in a hurry. So I instead did a 180-degree pattern and saw an apple orchard, and I knew that those were not real bad trees to hit, and set a pattern using flaps, all the flaps that I had, and had it in a slip. And the idea is to slip right over the top of these 60, 70 feet trees and straighten out and land your glider before it hits the embankments and the trees on the other side. Well, I was coming in too high. I knew I couldn't stop it on the other side. And I'd never used a deceleration chute, and I called for it, and it brought us right down and settled. And then you start getting out of that glider, because in those hedgerows, and with all of the cover they've got, the enemy's already sitting there waiting for you.
We spotted the field and made the approach. We planned on using the rest of the chute, but at 500 feet it was inoperative. We wanted to clear the trees. We were a little too high, and we had to dive toward the ground in order to make it. Otherwise we'd have crashed directly into the trees. We got on the ground, applied full brakes, and put the glider up on the skids, and about 60 miles an hour, we plowed right into the embankment where the hedgerows were. And I tried to cock the glider to the right so the wing would hit first, but to absorb some of the shock, but there's no luck there. We just slid directly into the embankment. My feet punched through the nose of the glider. The control column came back and hit me in the face. And we were completely covered with dirt and sand and dust. In the meantime, they're still firing at us. And how we got out of the glider to this day, I don't recall. Just how we got out of that glider.
When you get on the ground, the worst problem you've got is recognize if these are them or if these are us. And you get in a hedgerow yourself and you're sort of solidified there, but you can look 3 or 4 different directions and you can see men moving. Are they your men or are they theirs?
Glider troops regroup quickly and move to defend roads and crossings from German counterattacks pushing toward the beaches. It's now that glider pilots become infantrymen.
Our orders was to join any combat element because we were trained for that. Artillery, infantry. But when we got there, my particular squadron was assigned to set up a holding action at a crossroad. And we dug in, right, not too far from that. The first action we got into, there was a lot of sniping going on. So we broke out from our area and went certain distances away and came back. We stayed the first night not too far from this location, dug in. We had one German tank that went down our road, and they had given us, I think they called it a jelly bomb or something. None of us knew that, but the idea is you throw it and it hits a tank or artillery. It'll catch fire and it'll keep burning. But we were told not to use those unless we had orders. Well, sure enough, this tank came through, and we were all along there, and we let it go, and sure enough, we saw the reason why. Is down the road, we heard 2 or 3 big blasts, and we had carried in 75 millimeter houses and 57 millimeter anti-tank guns, and I don't know which, but they got the German tank that's going through. But then daybreak, right at us, there were several people killed. There was one horse glider that I counted 10 men lined up with parachutes over them, so I know that there was that many fatalities in that one, and it was right in our field zone. Then we had our own that Buck Lindsay, a very courageous man from Fort Worth, Texas, was the first man we had killed. We knew we had to face it, but you're not ever really ready for that type thing. But there was no hesitancy once we hit the ground and in combat.
We were pretty well prepared with rifles and other weapons. We were qualified right up into the 37 millimeter anti-tank gun. We had grenades. I had a Thompson submachine gun. That helped as a scale weapon. If you fired that, it was very effective. After encountering quite a bit of sniper fire, we was assigned to take prisoners back to Utah Beach. So we had about 200 prisoners. We marched back to Utah Beach. On the way back, we were being bracketed by mortar fire, which was quite effective. One fellow was hit, seriously wounded, and another was killed as we approached the Utah Beach area. That was upsetting, and being the first time in combat, there's something we couldn't get used to right away.
You start finding a place to locate, and it might be you set up a frontal attack, you dig in, and you stay there with maybe 50 other soldiers up and down the road. I explained to you some of ours dug in, but and I don't know who gave us the order, but we was losing men at this crossroad at Le Forget. There's 4 or 5 hit, and there's no way you could look and see where the sniper was. So there's about 15 of us volunteered and moved slowly toward a house and a barn, and I don't know which one of the 15, but one of them spotted him and got him. So, it was things like that. You don't know what's going to happen. You have to be prepared to meet whatever the situation occurs. And like I said, when we first landed and we found out where the Germans were, we did a lot of digging and a lot of firing then, and it might be 100, 150 yards away, but we knew the movement in there was Germans. But it takes you a while to find out, and you're not about to shoot if you think you're fixing to hit one of your own men.
For days, the glider troops fight isolated behind enemy lines, with little communication and no certainty that the invasion is succeeding.
I believe it was a truck that had supplies moved in, and of course everybody's hollering real good because they haven't seen anybody come from that. We don't know whether they're going to take that beach or not. And we had very little communications, but when it came, then we started moving our way out toward the beach, but we'd have to stop and dig foxholes and fight a counterattack or this crossing the roads. We had a lot of experiences like that.
The pilots fight their way back to the beaches so they can man their next glider flight.
And I believe it was the end of the third day we got back to the beach and lay out on the beach. They had done such a magnificent job of hanging balloons up above and what have you. Whatever attacks we had, and we had some bombing coming on now, it was from a high altitude. And we had fighters, believe it or not, up there at night trying to find them.
The Normandy glider missions are considered a success, but they were almost canceled before the invasion began.
Allied commanders feared the glider assault could become a disaster. British Air Marshal Trafford Lee Mallory warned Eisenhower that the slow-moving gliders would be exposed to devastating German fire.
Told Ike, you can't send these gliders and troops in. They've got it covered. You can't land. It's going to be unsuccessful. You're going to have a 75% casualty. Well, Eisenhower said, but we have got to have Normandy consolidated so we can go into Cherbourg, which is a big place that ships could come into with supplies. We've got to take it, and I've got to send them. And I think that somebody said he prayed over it, but that night he says it's a go.
On the morning of D-Day, Harry Loftus loaded troops from the 101st Airborne into his glider. Some of those soldiers had never flown in a glider before. Others tried to joke their way through the fear.
We had spent a lot of time with the troops that we were carrying because you can understand that there was no people in the world had more guts than the 82nd or the 101st Airborne. They were great, great soldiers. But they were worried about something they didn't understand, and that was a glider. Some of them had been glider troops and knew, but others had never been inside a glider. So I spent an hour or two or three getting to know every one of the men's names and trying to console them and tell them what we were going to do. And we built up a pretty good relationship. And then it paid off for me because they got to laughing and cutting up and kidding me. One of them saw where I had a parachute on my seat. And he said, man, he's got a parachute and we don't have parachutes. Well, I had to explain to them that they gave all of us parachutes to sit on as an instrument to keep bullets from going through your bottom. Now, we had flak suits that we wore, and we had helmets, but from bottom, and you can imagine a parachute folded up, it'd be awful hard for a shell to get through. So we had that kind of attitude with them. They got to know my name. I got to know them. I knew that the minute we landed, we would break up a short while after that. But I had them pretty well settled down, and I don't remember any of the words that was, except when it was in tomfoolery being said, because they were sort of silent.
The beaches of Normandy became legendary, but the story of the glider pilots was often forgotten. Young men flying silently into France in aircraft designed to crash. Many never came home, but without them, D-Day might have failed.
There's no doubt in my mind that it was not for the airborne troops that we went in and the things we did in Normandy. They'd have never taken Utah Beach. They could never have taken it.
After D-Day, the silent warriors continue their flights as the Allies battle their way towards Germany.
playing major roles in conflicts like Market Garden and the Battle of the Bulge.
I don't mind telling you that I was very proud to be a glider pilot. I saw things that in training that was horrible to look at and see and have to live with. Horrible things that happened to fellow students who was flying. And then I saw some horrible, terrible things in combat. But I've said many times, and I'll say it again, that while if I could have snapped a switch and end the war, I'd have done it in a minute. But not being the case and being in it, I simply felt honored to be a glider pilot and to be a part of the things that I saw and the things that I did. And I wouldn't trade 1 minute of it for anything. We got wings on our graduation, just like all of the cadets did elsewhere. And we all graduated as flight officers, and we wore the pink and the green. And the wings were fashioned after a regular set of wings, except in the center of the wings was the letter G. Of course, that meant glider pilots. But on some occasion, somebody was asking in a group of people with power pilots in it, and asked, what does a G stand for? Because the power pilots didn't have it. And the power pilot stood up and said, that means G for guts. Those guys have got the guts. And so we're proud